I can't believe I'm saying this, but the Denver Nuggets might be cooked.
So the Denver Nuggets have been one of the most interesting stories to follow over the past handful of months, and it's been all for the wrong reasons. A roster that many people like myself believe that was talented enough to go back to the finals, defend their title as champions, and potentially win back-to-back, unfortunately found themselves falling short in the second round by the hands of the Minnesota Timberwolves in a Game 7 in which they were supposed to win. Things continue to get worse as they lost KCP in free agency, their starting two-guard who was a part of the championship run, to free agency, and they lost him for literally nothing as he walked to Orlando and signed a contract in which they were not willing to sign him to. And of course, as many people speculated, a huge reason why you would do that is because of the players that were coming up off of their contract soon, in particular Jamal Murray, who just signed his deal, a 4-year, $209 max contract extension that will not only carry him all the way through the 2029 season, but more specifically, after this upcoming season, Jamal Murray be making upwards to $46 to $57 million a year.
Y'all see these numbers? Man, it is insane how we've normalized NBA money.
Upwards to $46 to $57 million a year. And now I know the salary cap is increasing, and many people will certainly argue that, hey, Jamal Murray is one of those caliber players, especially in a roster like the Denver Nuggets, where you have to pay him because you don't want to lose him for nothing whatsoever. And trust me, I thoroughly understand that logic. However, it's really hard to stomach when he has been performing as poorly as he has over the last couple of months. And this has been a talking point over the past couple of months. However, everyone has been avoiding it, or at least it's been one of the best kept secrets, and that is Jamal Murray. It's a big question mark behind him. So for those who may have forgotten, Jamal Murray, drafted back in 2016, has quickly rose into the power ranking of point guards in the NBA. And though he may not be a top 10 point guard, trust me, the talent pool is so deep that even if he falls somewhere between the range of 10 to 15, it still means he's really talented. And a lot of that talent honestly doesn't show up in the regular season, but definitely shows up when it matters in the postseason. We first saw a glimpse of this back in 2020 in the bubble, and we really got to see Murray go nuclear in multiple games against the Utah Jazz, in the Los Angeles Clippers, and that's where he really made a name for himself. Now, unfortunately, he wasn't able to capitalize on this momentum in the following season as he dealt with a season-ending injury, which then translated to an ACL tear where he missed the entirety of the 2022 run, but then came back for the 2023 campaign, played really well in the regular season, but once more turned it up another notch in the postseason where he averaged 26 points, 7 assists, 5 to 6 rebounds, shooting splits of 47, 40, and 93, and
Jeez. I think Jamal Murray belongs in this very specific class of players where I think they do so well in the playoffs and turn it up so well in the playoffs where we kind of overlook the regular seasons that they have and just make our judgments on who they are as players once the playoffs roll around. I think Jamal Murray routinely in the regular season isn't in top 5, top 4 point guard discussions, but it's kind of on some who cares, because once the playoff roll around, he turns into like a 25, 27 point per game scorer and becomes one of the craziest buckets in the league. I think another player in this tier is Jimmy Butler. Back in the day, Rondo, Kawhi to a certain extent. We just kind of give them passes in the regular season because we know they're about to turn up in the playoffs. But the problem with that is when your stock is so dependent on the playoffs and then you don't perform well in the playoffs, I feel like you're going to get equally as smoked because we know in the regular season, you're not that guy anyways. So if we're about to make our judgments on you as a player throughout the playoffs and you have a bad playoff run, yeah, you about to get cooked.
Undeniably was a huge factor to why the Denver Nuggets not only won a championship, but was viewed as a legit title contending team and a future threat for the remainder of the NBA. And I had to say this about Jamal Murray. As a Laker fan, I see it firsthand every single year. His ability to turn it up in the postseason, look like a completely different player, and I would go as far as to say ascend to near top 10 status, is a difference maker for this Denver Nuggets roster that doesn't really have as much talent as I think a lot of people believe. A lot of these players for Denver, they just look better because they play alongside Jokic. However, I gotta give it to Murray. In the 2020 and the 2023 postseason run, bro, he stepped into the plate. He played at levels in which could rival some of the greatest point guards we've seen over the past decade. And he played at a level that not only complimented Jokic and his team to championship status, but really altered the perception for a lot of people on who Jamal Murray was in the NBA. But unfortunately, it seems as if like a lot of that was short-lived. And again, I don't know why a lot of people aren't talking about it. Last year in the regular season, Jamal Murray was actually fantastic. He was sensational. sensational. I thought he was poised to do what he did again. You could very well argue the 2024 campaign is easily the best regular season of his career, as he averaged 21 points, 6 to 7 assists, 4 rebounds, but the shooting splits is what really got me. 48% from the field, 42.5% from behind the arc, and 85% from the charity stripe. But when the postseason began, everything really fell apart. Shooting splits dropped to career lows, 40% from the field, 31.5% from behind the arc. And even though, yes, he did shoot 92% from the free throw line, he only got to the charity stripe twice a game, which is half of what he normally does. And because how poor of a shooter he was only held to 20 points per game. And this lack of production was pretty consistent all throughout the playoffs. I think a lot of people just didn't talk about it too much when it came to the Lakers series because of his 2-game winners, but it was on full display against Minnesota. He was just in defensive hell. The things that Nikhil, Ant, and Jaden was doing to Jamal really had everyone shook and paused for a second before they continued to make leaps on where they had him ranked in the NBA. Now, we'll be fair to Jamal Murray. Struggling against the Timberwolves ain't really a knock, if we're being honest with ourselves. You will certainly hope and want someone of Jamal Murray's status to continue to play at a certain level, and sure, you could certainly argue that he wasn't looking 100% by the end of the regular season either, which then carried over to the postseason. But hey, struggling against Minnesota with Nikhil, Ant, and Jaden on you, it's not that big of a deal at all. And you could very well argue outside of Boston with Drew Holiday and Derek White and Jaylen Brown, you're not going to really match up against any other team in the entire association that can come with that level of defensive prowess to be a POA defender, even with Jokic setting screens for you. So a lot of people were optimistic on who Jamal Murray is going to be, but then the Olympics came along and it somehow got worse. In an Olympic run where Jamal Murray is playing for Canada, and a lot of people thought that Canada was going to be the second best roster in the entire tournament, somehow they don't even compete for a medal at all. Not gold, not silver, not even bronze. And a huge reason for that is because how poorly Jamal Murray performed all throughout the Olympics. As Murray only averaged 6 points a game, 4 assists, 3.
I haven't seen these numbers yet, man. 6 points a game on this efficiency, 29%, 14%. And I doubt you was getting to the line when you're averaging 6 points a game. So he's probably only getting to the line, what, like half a game, once a game?
Rebounds, turned the ball over twice, and shooting splits of 29% from the field, 14% from behind the arc. And though he did not miss a free throw, he was only getting to the free throw line once a game. In particular, against France, where they needed Jamal Murray the most, he was held to 7 points, 3 for 13 shooting from the field, 1 for 4 shooting from behind the arc, only got to the free throw line a grand total of, oh no, he didn't get to the free throw line at all, and only recorded 1 assist, but turned the ball over 3 times. It was a really, really bad game, and a lot of people chalk this up to maybe Jamal Murray is just a Jokic merchant. He needs somebody out there to set screens for him and to look really, really good. Just another piece in the clog of the Denver Nuggets offense that is overly dependent on Nikola Jokic.
I wouldn't say that. I can't say Jamal Murray is a Jokic merchant. I just can't. I just think I've seen Jamal Murray create too many shots on his own. I've seen him play make on his own way too many times for me to say he's made by Jokic. Does he benefit a lot from Nikola Jokic? Absolutely. Absolutely. Not denying that. But was it worth giving him a $200 million extension? I believe so. Absolutely. One, when you think of the Denver Nuggets, how replaceable is Jamal Murray? Not much, okay? If you let go of Jamal Murray, there is probably not going to be another Jamal Murray just walking through that door. Let alone all the chemistry he's built up with Jokic and Mike Malone throughout the years. Let alone him actually delivering a championship to the city of Denver. Like, Jamal Murray is proven in that city. As far as his performances over these last couple of months, though, I can't hold too much stock in the Olympics. I just never have, in my opinion. The different roles, the different environments, the different play styles, the different rules that people play when they go overseas and play these international games compared to what the roles are in the NBA, I don't really care. I'm going to be honest with you. But as far as Jamal Murray's playoff performance last season, I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. Even if you look at his track record, more often than not, he still turns it up in the playoffs. So I personally am just viewing that as a bad playoff run. But then again, ultimately, it goes back to I don't think you're going to find a Jamal Murray replacement if you let go of Jamal Murray. And we'll definitely get into it later in the video, but especially with them losing Bruce Brown and KCP in these last 2 offseasons, yeah, they got to hold on to as much talent as they can.
Yes, I do believe some of that, just some of that is true. It still doesn't necessarily justify a lot of the performance that we saw from Murray, not only in the playoffs, but also translating into the Olympics as well. Now, again, I want to be clear. I understand the concept of why you have to pay Jamal Murray a max contract extension. I get it. Trust me. You are a team that's trying to compete. The only way you do so is to make financial commitments that may be a bit too much, but you're trying to keep the integrity of the roster so again, you can compete for a title. And of course, that's something that you want to do when you have a talent like Nikola Jokic on your team. But if that's the case, and again, I thoroughly understand that. Trust me, I get it. But if that's the case, why did you let KCP walk for nothing? Especially when he was only getting paid like 20-some million dollars. That genuinely does not make any sense whatsoever. If the thought process of the Denver Nuggets is just to pay, regardless of the cost that it comes at, I then don't understand why is it that for 2 off seasons in a row, you've lost talent. First, it was Bruce Brown 2 off seasons ago. This off season is now KCP, and you're trying to plug in some of the missing pieces with young players that may not be able to fill the void. And I'm actually pretty huge on Christian Brown, so I do believe that Brown will be able to fulfill a lot of what KCP provided to the team. Maybe not the shooting, but everything else I do believe that he'll be just as good, if not better, and probably a bit more dynamic offensively because of his athleticism. But still, it'll be better to have him on the bench and have some depth besides just trying to overly depend on your starting 5 or your 6-7 man rotation like we see with the Boston Celtics. And speaking of which, if you are going to go down that route like the Boston Celtics, then you would have to do exactly what they're doing, which is just pay. It doesn't matter what's going on. The Celtics are committed to the idea of just giving money to this team because they provided the evidence that they can win, they can compete, even if it...
I mean, we're built different. I don't know what to tell you. But this right here to me is the biggest problem that I have with the Denver Nuggets. It's not them paying Jamal Murray. It's them losing talent throughout these last 2 off seasons the way that they've had. I need y'all to recollect exactly what the Denver Nuggets were when they won a championship, right? This was not a deep roster when they won a championship. The reason why they were so dominant was 1, because of Jokic, 2, because of Jamal Murray turning up in the playoffs, and 3, because specifically how talented their core 5 and 6 were and how those pieces fit together. Their starting 5 was Jamal Murray, KCP, MPJ, Aaron Gordon, Nikola Jokic, Bruce Brown coming off the bench, and then you'd have Jeff Green coming there for a couple of minutes. You know what I'm saying? Like, please just try to recall what the Denver Nuggets were during their playoff run. But over these last 2 off season, you lose Bruce Brown, cool, fine. You know, you still have Jokic, you still have Jamal, you still got your core 5 guys. You definitely lost an important piece off the bench, but at the end of the day, your dominance is predicated off of having the most well-rounded starting 5 in the league, arguably, right? But then you lose in the playoffs the way that you do. You lose KCP in the offseason, and now you're trying to fit in Russell Westbrook onto the team. Now you're trying to fit in Peyton Watson and Christian Braun onto the team. And now it just feels like a team that's trying to compete still. They're still trying to win now. However, this is a team that doesn't want to pay the big bucks to keep their actual true core together. They still want to keep Jamal Murray because he's too integral to the team. They paid MPJ a couple years back when they needed to. Obviously, Jokic is getting money because he's Jokic. But as much as they can, if they can lower the amount of tax money that they have to pay, then hey, let's get away with it. We're still going to be one of the best teams in the league. We're still going to have Jamal and Jokic. We're still going to be good. Maybe not maximizing what we can be, but we're still going to be comp. And I think that's a horrible mentality to have. And if that is the mentality that ownership has, that ownership should not be running this team. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. If you broke, just say that. Nah, that's crazy to say with the amount of money these motherfuckers are making. They're definitely not broke. However, if their finances are in a way where they need to penny pinch this much, I feel like it's a really big disservice to the city of Denver and to the core that they have that this is how they're going about things. Because I need y'all to remember the discussions we were having prior to Denver getting eliminated. We were talking about dynasty talks when it came to the Denver Nuggets. I need y'all to remember that. After they won a championship, after the way they performed in the regular season the year after the way Jokic was looking, after how they dog-walked the Los Angeles Lakers, they felt like an inevitable team, and a lot of people still had them winning the championship, even though the Boston Celtics were playing the way that they were playing. But in a matter of really 12 months, that the dynasty talks have damn near ended. And that's crazy to me. That's crazy.
It means potentially overpaying someone like Jrue Holiday later on at the end of his contract a little bit more money because they're trying to capitalize on a roster that they have now. You are the Denver Nuggets, a franchise that has never seen a roster this talented. So just throwing money at it makes the most sense, even if it comes with restrictions and limitations down the line with your draft capital. I personally believe it's all worth it, because who cares? Who cares if 5, 6, 7 years down the line, if the draft pick will be at the end of the draft class? More than likely, whoever you're going to draft will not be as good as Nikola Jokic anyway. So what does it even matter? And you know what's even crazier? It's only going to get worse when it comes to the financial decisions from the Denver Nuggets, because up next they have to pay Aaron Gordon, who after this season has a player option for $22.8 million. And if I was him, I will opt out to try to receive a contract extension, and losing him, in my opinion, will be an even bigger blow than losing KCP, because of all the things that he does defensively. In particular, a lot of that backline help that really aids Jokic with the rim protection and rebounding. Also, if you're committed to the idea of inserting Christian Brown into the starting lineup, now his contract becomes a question mark as well, because he only has 2 more years left on his deal. Both are team options, but if you're going to rely on him to be a starter, that means that his price, his value to this team has also increased. Peyton Watson also has to get his contract extension as well. More than likely, he's going to start receiving more minutes also. So his value, very similar to Christian Brown, has gone up too. And mind you, all of this is happening while the roster is actively losing talent, actually making the roster around Jokic even worse. So how is it possible that you even believe that you're going to compete, especially in a league where everyone else has either stayed the same or gotten better, that are title contending teams? In this offseason, OKC's gotten better with adding Alex Caruso and Hartenstein. Dallas Mavericks has gotten better with adding Klay Thompson. The New York Knicks have gotten better with adding Mikal Bridges and bringing back OG Anunoby. The Milwaukee Bucks have quietly had a really good offseason for a team that has made the financial commitments that it seems as if like the Denver Nuggets are afraid to do. And even for the teams that have not gotten better, at bare minimum, they have stayed the same, like the Boston Celtics and the Minnesota Timberwolves, who are still going to be in the same vicinity of talent, expertise, and more importantly, having the ability to match up really well against this Denver Nuggets roster that seems to be a mismatch problem for a lot of other teams in the NBA. But these teams will certainly provide a lot of problems for what the Nuggets tend to do over the past 24 months. And all of that doesn't even consider potentially a healthy full postseason run from Joel Embiid with the Philadelphia 76ers, now adding Paul George, bringing back Tyrese Maxey, and even that right there will be very, very questionable on what this team will be able to compete with. Now, to be fair,
we not worried about that. I ain't gonna lie. We not worried about the Sixers. I mentioned this last video when I was talking about the Phoenix Suns. We are definitely in a league where it's not about the big 3. It's not about the big 2. It's not about the big 1. You need to make full-on rosters. 1 through 8 matters. It just does. And it's just crazy to me because I feel like out of all the teams in the league, the Denver Nuggets really like embodied that, right? Because outside of Jokic, they didn't have the ultra star power that the Phoenix Suns have from a name value. They don't got LeBron and AD. They don't got these extremely high draft picks. I don't know about that, but y'all know what I mean. This is a team that relied on players fitting so well together, being so well coached, having continuity, having chemistry. But for some reason, every single year, that armor that they have just keeps on getting chipped at. And it's looking like, unless they want to pay up, it's going to get chipped even more. But like Lo said, if you are going to end up paying Aaron Gordon, if you are going to end up paying Christian Braun and still be over the second tax apron, you might as well not be a pussy and just pay everyone and keep the core that you had. But that's too late at this point. They're gone.
Compared to Denver, I thoroughly understand the much bigger problem they have is Michael Porter Jr. and his contract. MPJ, very similar to Jamal Murray, underperformed against the Minnesota Timberwolves, and not enough people are talking about it. With the amount of money that he's been getting paid in contrast to his production, and quite honestly, it never really made any sense, but it made the pill even harder to swallow after the Timberwolves series where he was just completely disappointing. And so I understand having him on a roster is the true conundrum, the true problem. However, I don't believe that's a problem that they're going to be able to address until he's in the last year of his deal, an expiring contract, and a bit more palatable for any other team in the NBA to accept during any type of transaction.
The worst thing you can do when you already establish a championship window in the league is to regress, right? I feel like there's certain teams in the league, you know, if we're talking about the Atlanta Hawks, the worst thing you can do is stay stagnant, right? You're not going up, you're not going down, you're just right in the middle. But when you're the Denver Nuggets, right, you won a championship 2 years ago, you were still a championship contender last season, the worst thing you can do is to regress. The bare minimum is to just re-sign everyone. And the Denver Nuggets couldn't even do that. Hey, listen, as a Celtics fan, am I happy to see all of this? I can't say I'm happy because I hate when, you know, owners and teams waste all-time players' primes, which it seems like the Denver Nuggets are on pace to do. I can't say I'm happy, but I will say this. Out of all the teams last season, the Denver Nuggets were the ones I was afraid of the most, and they were the ones where once they got eliminated, I was like, okay, this really might be the year now. Wait, hold on. This really might be the year. But with that being said, shout out to Love for the video. Link to his video in the description down below. And I'm out of here. Peace.